Southern Cameroon's crown of freedom, you have it.
My dear people of the Southern Cameroons, welcome to another breathtaking session. In this video, we are going to analyze speeches made on our behalf in international spaces and how they are silently working against us. One thing you should understand is, in international spaces, speeches are evidence. Once spoken, they are archived, replayed, and compared. This is what most of our people don't understand. This is not a personal attack on anyone. We are upgrading the vocabulary so that the world can hear us correctly. We are also going to look into the candidacy of Issa Tchiroma Bakary, how international leaders perceive leadership, and how they silently observe the candidacy of Issa Tchiroma Bakary that many in our community fail to pay attention to. We are also going to compare that with what is happening in Venezuela. So this session is going to be jam-packed with a lot of information that will set Southern Cameroonians up for success, preparing us for the first world nation in the continent of Africa. So buckle your seatbelt, grab a cup of coffee, and let's enjoy this wonderful ride. Do me a favor, click the subscribe button so that every time a video is uploaded, you will be the first to be notified. That is your vote of confidence that I want to be actively involved in bringing about change. Let's dive into this video.
Period in jail, our people, the Anglophones, were resilient. They fought for us. They protested in the streets in Cameroon. They protested in the streets in Switzerland, in Germany, in the US, in South Africa. The pressure brought in by the international community also forced the president on the 30th of August 2017 to sign a decree releasing myself, Dr. Fontaine, Justice Aya, and amongst others. But the problem had not been solved. By the time we were being released, it was too little, too late. The way government had repressed the Anglophones, some of them had taken up arms to defend themselves. The rhetoric had changed. The people had moved from a peaceful protest, clamoring for federation, to a call for an independent state, for outright separation. So by the time we left jail, there was tension. Hate speech from both parties was running riot in Cameroon. It was now we against them and them against us. The Cameroon we used to know had changed tremendously. Francophones against Anglophones, Anglophones against Francophones. It continued until when the president officially declared war against the people of Southern Cameroons.
That is a very powerful speech made by Barrister Akpo Bala before an international audience. This is part of that 70%. This is what will happen. When we go now before this same international community with our petition of the authentic Southern Cameroon's story and the real issue of incomplete independence, incomplete decolonization, they will go into their archives. They will bring out records like that, play them, and ask us questions. That someone that is credible from the Southern Cameroons came here and said this. What you are saying is inconsistent with what they said. I know they have good intentions, but these are stumbling blocks on our way that we will have to deal with. Imagine this. John Ba Akoro has been preaching on this crisis for 9 to 10 years. The plebiscite question that is said to have created this union he could not properly interpret it. It is written in black and white. Do you choose to gain independence by joining Nigeria or the Republic of Cameroon? He said, when you gain independence, we gain our independence, and then we are given the option to choose whether we want to join La Republic or Nigeria. 9 to 10 years. We spend our time every day on that 20%, which is La Republique du Cameroon, and the 70%, which is working on ourselves, reading books, not picking up headlines, and creating narratives. So that when we go out, we speak as one. And if we can achieve that this 2026, that is progress. Now let's analyze that speech. It's very short, but very powerful. We will have to undo everything said before international communities from 1995 right up to 2021. Petitions that have gone into the United Nations carry a similar narrative. But the authentic problem of incomplete independence, incomplete decolonization that has caused all this suffering on our people is never highlighted, casually talked about. This is what I want you to pay attention to. In international spaces, words are evidence. Once spoken, they are archived, replayed, and compared. That means, my people, if you had mangoes and you had cocoyam, then you had 2 buckets. Your goal is that all the mangoes go into this bucket. All the cocoyams go into this bucket. So you are in the selection process. So every time we are speaking, the first thing they are doing is listening to the language. The language will determine what bucket this case goes into. Do you understand? So if your language sounds as though this is internal conflict within a state that you recognize that has jurisdiction over you, they put that case in that bucket. That is an internal conflict. But the authentic Southern Cameroon's case is not an internal conflict. This is happening because we have been raised to believe that we are Cameroonians by legitimacy. And that is the issue. I've distinguished between the 3 different types of Southern Cameroonians. Authentic Southern Cameroonians, Ambazonians, and Southern Cameroonians who are Cameroonians by learned acceptance. That is, they are trying to fix all the furnitures inside of La Republic. That maybe if we put the right president, or maybe we appoint the right minister, everything will be fine. Without legal foundation, without a marriage certificate, there is no way for you to be forcing that man or that woman to say, oh, it is polygamy. If you cheat on me, it's going to be a divorce. There is no way for you to get to that stage. All the legal minds in our community know this. Which valid document created the union between Southern Cameroons and La Republique du Cameroon? There is none. A plebiscite is interest. And that is all our people did. A union treaty was supposed to be signed, ratified, and registered at the UN under Article 102 of the United Nations Charter. And then we go on to adopt a constitution after a union treaty has been signed. That is sequence. The plebiscite question all by itself was a mechanism. It was a block. You choose to gain independence by joining. So if the right sequence, the process is not followed, we never joined, we never gain independence. Incomplete independence, incomplete decolonization, full stop. So anything La Republic is doing, they are violating international law. We stay there. So many of us do not realize that some of the explanations already given in our name in international spaces are quietly working against us. Venezuela started agitating since 2014, and they had a clear objective. They want democracy. The system they have is corrupt. Their objective was clear. You might focus your attention on oil. Trump said, yes, we went there for the oil because that is what you want to hear. But there are many reasons why America got into Venezuela. And we are going to touch briefly into that. I don't want to dive into the American politics. Stay away from it. We often explain a situation like this. We protested. That is what we've heard. We were arrested. The international community applied pressure. The president signed a decree and released us. But it was too little, too late. Some people took up arms. The rhetoric changed. The country became divided. That story sounds human. When you hear it, it sounds human. I told you, I wish the international community acts because people are dying. But that is not the case. I really wish so. That if enough people die, they will act without legal foundation. It sounds sincere. When you hear it, it's coming from a pure heart. It sounds convincing. That is, if you're listening, you'll be persuaded that this man really cares about this story. But legally, it is dangerous. Why? This is the first problem. The first problem is that the story is framed as repression, not status, which is our true story. There was no rules of engagement. That is why you, the lawyers, went out on the streets in 2016 because you didn't want La Republic judges inside your courts. If there was a clear rule of engagement upon the formation of this union, we would have cited that to say, sir, this is what we signed. Why are you breaking the rules? Even with that, we will still involve the international community based on that treaty. It will not be an internal conflict. Let me cite you an example. The relationship between Singapore and Malaysia didn't work out. The reason why Singapore slowly left Malaysia is because they had a union treaty. So the union dissolved without bloodshed. So a union treaty should also have an exit plan. In case we don't want this, we can move and go our separate ways. The moment you say we protested and we were jailed, you accept that Cameroon has lawful jurisdiction. That is the narrative. Because we all come from Southern Cameroons, we think everyone from Southern Cameroons talking about this crisis is saying the same thing. And that is why I make these videos, so that we should understand the difference. We are asserting, we are accepting that La République du Cameroun has lawful jurisdiction over our people. International actors immediately classify this as an internal political crisis within a defined jurisdiction. That Southern Cameroon is part of La République du Cameroun. So that is how they listen and classify our case. They classify it as a human rights issue. And I wish the international community acts fast, get involved in a country because of humanitarian crisis. Boko Haram has been ravaging Nigeria since 2009. President Trump sent a warning in 2025. You see how long it took? So when your story is not clear, since 1995, we have been hearing different versions of why the Anglophones are in pain, because we are stuck with the pain and not the legal process. They frame it and classify it as a governance failure, not an international legal question. of which that is our true claim. And once that classification is made, the door to jurisdiction, sovereignty, and legal remedy quietly closes. 70% is with us. Let no one fool you. The second mistake is saying it was too little, too late. That sentence concedes that there was a valid solution inside the system, inside La République du Cameroon. That the problem was timing, not legality. The structure was acceptable by our people, but poorly managed by La République du Cameroon. That is the signal we send out. International communities, international actors, pay attention to this. Your choice of words, framing your story. The third mistake is admitting that the armed phase was a voluntary escalation. When we say some people took up arms to defend themselves, international law hears, this is what international law hears, an internal insurgency within a sovereign state. Our people picked up arms to defend the institutions, the common law institutions of Southern Cameroon, what the lawyers and the teachers went on the streets for. Whatever you call marginalization, that is not the root cause of the problem. The root cause is that there was no defined rules of engagement from inception. The union was not properly formed. There is nothing we can reference in this relationship. And so with that, everyone is improvising. The Republic's government is improvising. And it is affecting our people, affecting our institutions, everything we have in the Southern Cameroons. That is why our people went on the street and the men on the ground picked up arms for that cause. Everything else is secondary. That is what the international community hears based on your choice of words. That automatically shifts the case from incomplete decolonization and status law to counterinsurgency and security law. And at that point, the system stops listening. Anything that has to do with internal conflict within a defined jurisdiction, within a defined state, the international community takes time to get involved. But when it is an international case, they act fast. So we have closed many doors. I'm not blaming anyone. We have been confused. Everyone has at some point. The fourth mistake is admitting goal shifting. When leaders say we moved from federation to separation, international listeners hear no fixed mandate, no continuity, no stable claim. They respond with, and that is how they respond, come back when your people agree. Now they'll be looping you around. And pay attention to this. Consistency is currency in international law. Write that down and never forget it. Consistency is currency in international law. Once spent, it is rarely refunded. Once you have spent it, it is rarely refunded. So I want to show you the gravity of the work that we have to do on ourselves moving forward in the Southern Cameroons, and the work we have to do when we go before international communities to establish the legal foundation of Southern Cameroons. If not, He will fight with La Republic for 60 years like Biafra and still be looping around. And some of you never, ever get to see your villages again. Never be safe in your villages again if we don't press the reset. The fifth mistake is framing the conflict as ethnic hostility. That is what it sounds. Francophones against Anglophones. This is a Southern Cameroon's La République du Cameroon crisis. It is not a Francophone-Anglophone crisis. The union was not formed to make us Anglophone and make them Francophones. You don't call Nigerians Anglophones. They are Nigerians. You don't call Ghanaians Anglophones. They speak English. They have the Anglophone. You don't have a speech problem here. It's not a linguistic problem. So when you say Anglophone, Anglophone, look at that word in the dictionary. Look at the meaning of the word Anglophone in the dictionary. That has to do with linguistics. That language transforms a legal question into a social conflict. So we cage ourselves inside of La République du Cameroon, and our true story is not properly shared with the world. And when you come back in the community, put your friends together and say that international community is unfair. They are hypocrites. When you come back, do that. I said, this is 553 years that we have been in contact with these white folks. In 1707, Britain lost 4 warships. Almost 2,000 people died because they miscalculated longitude. Parliament passed a law. They made sure that they fixed that problem. Every system that has transformed the West came out of adversity. Creativity flows out of adversity, not stability. When people are comfortable, it is hard for them to be creative. 9/11 happened here. Guess what? The United States tightened their security at the airport. We went through slavery and slave trade. We didn't step back and say, how do we make sure this never happens again? We never did that. We went through colonialism. We never stepped back. Instead, we came together and said, we are now Pan-Africans. We always create groups, create platforms, and talk about the problems forever. The West, they sit back and reflect and say, this will never happen again. And they solve that problem once and for all. And that is how their system keeps upgrading. Us, just talk. Now, this is 9 to 10 years. We have been in this crisis. We've lost thousands of people. Issa Tchiroma Bakary showed up. Now, some of us are running into La République du Cameroon to play politics. We don't say, guess what? The teachers and the lawyers went on the street for a reason. The resolution 1608 was clear about how this union was supposed to be formed. More than 87 countries were present on April 21st, 1961 to decide on the day Southern Cameroons will gain their independence. How do we put all of this together and make sure that our story makes sense? For ourselves first, and then the international community. Some of you who are clamoring, oh, come and help us. I mean, look at all these opinions that we have in the community. If they give us independence today, my brother, we will destroy each other really fast. Imagine. Let's make sure that we step back and say, never again will La République du Cameroon infiltrate any of our systems. Never again will our people be perceived as second-class citizens. Now our people are emotional to play Issa Tchiroma Bakary's politics. We'll get into that. This is the new wind of change in this generation, and it will start in Southern Cameroons, and then from here it will spread across Africa. That language of francophones, anglophones, that language transforms a legal question into a social conflict. And once that happens, the world stop asking who has jurisdiction and start asking, how do we manage coexistence? Coexistence in a relationship with no union treaty, no defined rules. Our people will be in this misery forever. That leads to endless dialogue with no resolution. And our people keep asking for the dialogue. They want to dialogue with La République du Cameroon. Now pay attention to this. This is why not everyone should speak internationally on behalf of Southern Cameroons. No matter how connected they are, respected or well-intentioned they are, they shouldn't speak on behalf of Southern Cameroons, because they will close many doors. Because when we walk in, they will play your tape and reference what you said. And it will be difficult for them to engage with anything that has to do with Southern Cameroons. Networking skill does not equal to representational competence. And that is why teamwork is important. Some people can network. Some people will go in there and speak. Some people will prepare paperwork. In serious movements, some people open doors. Others design legal arguments. We are in a any man try best society. It will take us 200 years to reset if we don't catch ourselves right now and say Southern Cameroons is more important than each and every one of us. The survival of this group of people, to get this group of people to have justice, is more important than people seeing me. Others design the legal argument. Only a few speak on our behalf. And they speak with discipline. I said, since Fonja, we haven't raised any leader in the Southern Cameroons that we could point to. After Dr. E.M.L. Endele and Fonja, we haven't had leaders emerge in the Southern Cameroons that we can reference. Everyone is in their own corner. La République doesn't need to fight you. That all by itself is enough to destroy you over time. So going forward, we must correct this systematically, not emotionally. That means three things. First, we must rewrite our public explanation into legal safety versions. Legal safety versions of our story. Same history, same suffering, but framed around jurisdiction, legality, and status. Not reaction, emotion, or escalation. That is what we must do from now moving forward. Same history, same suffering, but framed around jurisdiction, legality, and status. Some wake up and still waste time on the politics in La République du Cameroon. We have work to do. Work to do. One man can't build a nation. I can't. I'm here to build system and bring about structure and clarity. One man can't. It requires cooperative effort. Just the work I'm doing here, you won't imagine how many hours I invest on a daily basis to study. Second, we must establish a clear checklist of phrases that must never be said internationally. Phrases that concede jurisdiction, imply internal rebellion in La République du Cameroon, that we are accepting that we are part of that state, and so whatever agitation that comes from southern Cameroons is internal rebellion. Any phrase that suggests shifting objectives, any phrase that frames the issue as ethnic hostility, Anglophones versus Francophones. If a phrase downgrades the case, the legal minds in our community know this. There are certain phrases and words that will downgrade your case. You know that. That is why clients hire lawyers. Because if they go in there to speak, they will mess up everything. In a case that would have given them freedom, they might end up spending 10, 15, or 20 years or life in prison. Any phrase that downgrades the case, it does not belong in international space. Let me repeat that again. Any phrase that would downgrade our case does not belong to international spaces. We have to be factual with everything that has to do with Southern Cameroons. There's a very good case. If we tackle this the right way, after we are done with this case, this will be a case study in law and political science across the world as to what happens to people when we have issues of incomplete independence, incomplete decolonization, and a foreign state extends their administration, and the people are telling a different story about what is going on with them. And the world is not hearing them because of that. That is our true story. Third, we must design a simple representational protocol. Who speaks internationally? Where they speak? What language they are authorized to use? And what issues are off limits? It's not everything that we talk about in the national segment. When you finish speaking, you want to give a call to action. You can't overwhelm people with too much information that will not help your case. It's not like everything isn't important. Every detail of what our people have gone through matters. But when you have limited time before international audience, you have to say exactly what will get them to take action. So this is not censorship. Someone, oh, you want to have control. You want to... No, that's not what it is. This is not censorship. This is called strategy. I told you guys, this is political science, not political art. That means if you do things a certain way, you get certain results. We are not speculating. We are not the first to fight a war. Wars have been fought for thousands of years. We are not the first to be colonized. Even in the time of Jesus Christ, Israel was colonized. So we are not the first. So there's a template that we can use to solve this problem and say never again in the history of Southern Cameroons will our people be in this condition. No emotion, zero emotion with anyone from La République du Cameroon. I had friends that were Francophones, but you see where I am right now and what I'm dealing with, brother, let that friendship wait. I can't see what my people are going through and we have to sit around here and begin to talk about friendship. No. 65 years? No, wait. Every serious legal diplomatic movement does this. Every serious legal and diplomatic movement does this, because once a statement is made internationally, it cannot be recalled. It will be quoted back to us when we get in there. it will be used against us when we get in there. 70% is with Southern Cameroon. 70% of the problem is with us in Southern Cameroon. And it will outlive the speaker. What Foncha went there in 1995 and said, we can retrieve that document today and still see what he said, and it is working against us, whether you like it or not. They will compare notes, they will compare speeches. From 1995 to 2021, everything that has been deposited at the UN doesn't align. Our problem is not that the world refuses to listen, because they will go out there and tell you that the West doesn't want to listen to us, they hate us because we are black people. Our problem is that we have spoken without discipline. Even I myself, looking at what our people are doing and saying in international spaces, I won't get involved. And that is why you don't call people blackleg really fast. When a people's story is unclear, don't be quick to be the judge because you picked up Ambazonia. You are calling yourself Southern Cameroon's Ambazonia, two contradicting movements. Southern Cameroon is dealing with incomplete decolonization. Ambazonia is saying we already have the union and it didn't work out, so we are coming out. And then you say, no, it's an AKA. When we know, the world knows that these are two movements. Every name carries a story. Southern Cameroon carries a story. From 1953, 1954, when we left Nigeria, to 1961, Southern Cameroon, it carries a story. And what the people have been through after 1961 till date. Ambazonia carries a story from 1985. Don't say it's an AKA. It's a name with a story. We describe pain when we needed to establish status. That is the issue. I wish pain had market value. You always say the West is looking for their interests, and then now you're coming with pain that doesn't have market value, and you want to sell that and think people will buy it. I wish. So when I understood this, I started realizing it would do me no good talking about pain, but rather we establish law. We bring their own law before them and say, you guys didn't complete the process. The process was not lawfully completed. We stayed there. Every other thing that we have gone through, whether it's loss of lives, those are all supporting evidence under this claim, failure of the process. Not that we come with all this pain and people dying, villages burned to be the main thing. And the real burden of contention, we bury that. Or we just say that in two sentences and then we jump into all the things our people have gone through. No, I will spend time breaking down this legal process that was not followed. We told stories when we needed jurisdiction. We expressed emotion when we needed precision. And internationally, precision is power. If we want different outcomes, we must do things differently moving forward. Do you understand what I'm saying? Now let's dive into the candidacy of Issa Tchiroma Bakary. How international leaders perceive Issa Tchiroma Bakary versus how the average Cameroonian sees Issa Tchiroma Bakary. There is a valuable lesson for you to learn, so pay attention. We will look briefly into what is happening in Venezuela so that we can compare and contrast.
The Norwegian Nobel Committee has decided to award the Nobel Peace Prize for 2025 to Maria Corina Machado. She is receiving the Nobel Peace Prize for her tireless work promoting democratic rights for the people of Venezuela and for her struggle to achieve a just and peaceful transition from dictatorship to democracy.
As soon as I learned that we had been awarded the Nobel Peace Prize, I dedicated to President Trump because I believed at that point that he deserved it. And a lot of people, most people said it was impossible to achieve what he has just done on Saturday, January 3rd. I certainly would love to be able to personally tell him that we believe the Venezuelan people, because this is a prize of the Venezuelan people, certainly want to give it to him and share it with him.
One thing I want to draw your attention to is the opposition party in Venezuela is pro-democracy, while the leading party in Venezuela is anti-democracy. This has been their message since 2014, the same message. This woman got a Nobel Peace Prize. Maria Corina. She dedicated that Nobel Peace Prize to President Donald Trump. That is building relationships. Some people will say, oh, what are you doing? That is imperialism. They will talk all they want. But at the end of the day, that is strategy. Today, they got help. Some of you think, oh, because you have suffered, so you put your case close to that of Venezuela, and then the United States will come in and take out Pobia for you. My question to you is, what has been your energy, your attitude towards the United States? Has it been positive? Your energy is everything. While some insult this woman, her intentions are pure. She wants the best for her people, and she doesn't care where help comes from. It's the same mindset that transformed China. They were tired of what they were going through. Deng Xiaoping visited Texas and he said, it doesn't matter whether the cat is black or white, as long as it can catch a mice. He said it was a good cat. Went back to China, they reformed their economic policies. In 47 years, China is a first world country. And let me help you understand this. In every dispensation, you will always have a superpower. That is that one nation. It's never two, one. That one nation that is chosen for that hour. In our dispensation, America is that nation. This is what people have done over time. During the time of Jesus Christ, Rome was that one nation for that hour. And Jesus Christ picked a coin and did not challenge Rome. Why are you colonizing us? He said, give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, and give to God what belongs to God. So even God in human form acknowledged that. Our people will have to learn this the hard way. Now, in every dispensation, after studying 500 years of human history, one thing is clear. In every dispensation, you will always have a superpower. Then we'll tie this with Issa Tchiroma Bakary. We have three groups of people and how they respond towards that superpower. The first group become friends with the superpower. And they are blessed. They are protected. They benefit from that relationship. In your Bible, you heard about the Queen of Sheba. She heard about King Solomon, brought gifts to King Solomon to honor King Solomon because of his wisdom. King Solomon at that time was leading Israel, superpower. So the first group of nations become friends with that superpower. And they are blessed. But when you are too friendly with a superpower, you can become a pawn. It is the easiest way to exist during that era but it is dangerous at the same time. The second group are those who admire that superpower. They are not enemies with the superpower, but they admire and learn from that superpower. Singapore is one of those nations. It is hard to maintain that position because now Singapore is like the mediation ground between China and America. You must be disciplined, you must be competent, you must carry yourself a certain way, and that is what I hope for us. It is the hardest path, but it is the best path that you admire, you learn, but you don't become too friendly with that superpower. The third group are those who decide to be enemies with that superpower, and they are always crushed. They are always the losers. These are historical patterns. Iraq is a classic example. Afghanistan is a classic example. Iran is a classic example. They want to align with Russia against America. When you are crushed, you'll be left all by yourself. You saw it. Within hours, America got into Venezuela and brought out the president. So all of you creating AI videos to hype Ibrahim Traore, he's doing an amazing job for his people. I don't know why you create all these narratives on social media about him. Because openly, he's not saying these things. If America wanted to get into Africa and bring out Ibrahim Traore, my people, it will be quick and fast. So people who decide to be enemies, nations who decide to be enemies without superpower, always get crushed. These are historical patterns. I bet you never knew this. Now let's dive into Issa Tchiroma Bakary's case, and then we wrap up the story. I'm not attacking anyone here because this is not about personalities. These are people's lives. Whatever decision we collectively make, we will live with the consequences for a very long time. And tomorrow you will say, oh, why didn't you say something? Where were you? It is already too late. It is never too late to do the right thing. Write that down. It is never too late to do the right thing. So let's look into Issa Tchiroma Bakary's candidacy. How Western leaders, how global leaders, how African leaders perceive the candidacy of Issa Tchiroma Bakary. That's why he went to the Gambia. And the man said, no, I will tell your country you're here. My country will not be used as a base for any uprising in Cameroon. Do you know why? Oh, Africans cannot be trusted. Okay, let's talk about it briefly. So again, it's not about personalities. It is about how power transitions are read at the international level. How power transitions are read at the international level. Many people, both in Southern Cameroon and La République du Cameroon, are running after Issa Tchiroma Bakary today as the solution. That is a known fact. I want to explain why global leaders see this very differently. If the global leaders saw it the same way you see it, it wouldn't make them the leaders that they are. So there is something they know. There is a way they perceive events from the way you do. This is not a judgment of his character. It is an analysis of timing, structure, and credibility. Issa Tchiroma Bakary, let's start there, walked inside the same governing system for over 2 decades. Establish that. Oh, so what? Everybody has made mistake. Everybody inside the system is corrupt. That is a fact. That is a fact. We are not disputing that. The fact that Issa Tchiroma Bakary walked inside that system does not permanently disqualifies him. It does not permanently disqualifies anyone walking inside La République du Cameroon. But this is what they should pay attention to. People can change. Because after 5, 10 years, you look at someone and say, brother, you are still doing the same thing. You haven't changed. It's confusing, right? People can change. People can repent. Apologies can be made and accepted. You can apologize and people accept your apology. Issa Tchiroma Bakary did that. I said there was no Anglophone crisis. Now I accept there is an Anglophone crisis. Apology made, apology accepted. But in international politics, timing matters. This is how leaders see it now. You don't see it that way. If someone steps away from a corrupt system, takes time to disengage, reflect, reform, and then later seek to do the right thing, that signals conscience. If someone steps away because they see an opportunity to become president, that signals ambition. Write that down and never forget it. Global leaders are trained to tell the difference. And you understand why. And they judge based on pattern, not speeches. Oh, I'll bring down this man. No, they judge based on pattern. If Issa Tchiroma Bakary stepped down and said, oh, I'll take some time, maybe 7 years, build myself, build relationship with the people, because I've realized what this government is doing is not right by the people. That is a completely different story. If we are running 3 months to the election, you step out of that government and say you want to run as president, the world, global leaders see ambition. They don't see repentance. We put repentance in a different category and accept the repentance. But based on the actions that we see, that is ambition. From the outside, many supporters believe insiders are best positioned to bring change. That is what the average Cameroonian believes. Someone who tells you, I know this government, I have this uncle, I have this connection, I have money, I have that. People believe that those individuals will bring about change, and so you give in your all. I said, if you look at that list of those who ran for president, there is one person in there. I wish many saw that individual. They were not an insider. They were an outsider. Outsiders change the world. The richest man in the world today is Elon Musk, an outsider, born and raised in South Africa, traveled to Canada and to America, richest man in the world. Donald Trump was not a career politician. He left the business space, came into politics, and he's disrupting the world. A real alpha male. Most of you from southern Cameroons and La République du Cameroon that live in the United States, Canada, or Europe, you are outsiders. That is why you act differently in these countries. You have 2 jobs, you have 3 jobs. That is why the conditions of our people back home grieves you, because of that outsider lens. I don't know how you turn around to support an insider in Cameroon, Issa Tchiroma Bakary. You've forgotten who you are. The top 3 religions that controls this world were all founded by outsiders. Moses was an outsider, raised in the palace, but ended up in the back of a desert, came back as an outsider to save his people. Jesus Christ was not in this world, came into this world, born and raised by a carpenter. He was not part of the ruling class of Israel, founded Christianity. Muhammad was an orphan. He was not part of the elite class. left Mecca to found Islam. Outsiders change the world. Donald Trump, outsider. Elon Musk, outsider. You missed this. I'll bet on an outsider every time. They come in with a different energy. They are hungry for change. Now, when you look at an insider, you think they are best positioned to bring change. Some will say he knows the system. He understands the weaknesses of the president and La République du Cameroon. He can bring it down from within because he has worked with the system. Let me shock you. But that is not how international decision makers think. What they see is a senior insider who knew the system was broken, benefited from it for years, and then turned against his principal when power became available. That is what they see. Someone that was benefiting from the system. When they saw power, they turned against their boss. That is how international actors, leaders see this. To endorse that kind of leader sends a dangerous signal that it is acceptable for trusted insiders to study their boss, break ranks, and seek power. Most leaders would never publicly endorse that kind of president. Not because they defend corruption, but because they have institutions of their own to protect. If you run a government or a company, you do not reward senior employees for betraying leadership in pursuit of power. You didn't see it that way, right? You only saw Pobia you're trying to bring down. You didn't see this was someone working with his boss for more than 20 years. Whether the man is corrupt or not, if you realize he was corrupt, step down. Just 3 months, you change. But because our mind is focused on those who have connections, those who know the system, we are focused more on Pobia. I separate Pobia's presidency from the Southern Cameroon's case mentally. You must be able to do this mentally to be stable, to understand how to function in an environment like this. If not, Pobia is the enemy, so everything that anyone does against him is right. That kind of a society, my brother. They asked Jesus, he said, give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar and what belongs to God to God. But he knew that his people were colonized by Rome and they were taxing their people every season. But Jesus Christ said that you separate politics from the jurisdictional claim of Southern Cameroon. Don't mix everything. That is a red flag anywhere in the world. To work for your boss, step down and say, now you are the new boss. That tells us more about the character of some of our people than it does of Pobia. This Issa Tchiroma Bakary's candidacy, the way this election was run, tells us more about the character of some of our leaders and our people than it does of Pobia. That is the signal the world gets. So that means if I'm working with you, it is okay to break ranks. If someone is working in your business, they understand how your system works. It is okay for them to break ranks and go start their own company. This is the culture. It is everywhere in our community. That is why most businesses in our community can't stand, because of the spirit. So now you're working with people, you're watching them instead of being creative. So you try as much as possible to strengthen security than invest in agriculture, in technology, because you have to be watching the people. If it's not fair, the system is not good, your people are in pain, anyone that serves for that government, step down. You've seen the pain that your people have gone through, step down. Don't wait during elections. You step down and claim, oh, now you can defeat the system. Anyone that has worked in that government can never be a true liberator to free you. And I will show you why. That is why I called this in the beginning the illusion of change. You never understood why. When I called this the illusion of change, some of you will say, oh, it's a hater. Doesn't like Issa Tchiroma Bakary. Oh, doesn't want the progress of those in La République du Cameroon. No. Leadership sees things different from how the average person sees it. The Bible says God looks at your heart. Man looks at the outward appearance. A serious insider who wanted reform could have stepped aside early, acknowledged complicity, and made mistakes. Forgive me, apologies accepted. Mentor the credible alternative. Like I said, there was one man among those people. I saw the fire in his eyes. But we come from a society where the one who says they know. Let me tell you something. If God ever uses the one that claims they know the system because they've worked for that system, if they succeed, it will be because of what they know. If you don't know why God always uses outsiders and not insiders, so that when you look at the story of an outsider, you say there is no way for this person to make it this far if God was not with them. He didn't have the connection. He didn't know anybody. He didn't have the money. That is the story we hear again and again in the Bible and throughout history. Every great leader, you look at Steve Jobs, you say this guy that was walking barefooted, he didn't have a tech career, college dropout, including Facebook. These stories always come on top because this is the kind of people that God uses. Always be looking for outsiders and not insiders. Now adjusting your lens so you can see correctly. He would have mentored someone if it was really about that change. I'm making this video so that you can calm down. I told you if I was the one, I wouldn't have declared myself president early. I would have waited for the results. The desperation was too much. You see, even the script that most of the oppositions have been using, from Maurice Kamto to Issa Tchiroma Bakary, came from an outsider, Minjong Fundi in 92. That if you win, declare yourself president. They have been using that script till today. It is hard to be an outsider and fail. But if you are an insider, there is a high chance you can't help the people. I bet you. It's by design. Study history, you see these things. It's nothing to be stressing about. It's not something to debate. It's not something to argue. Most of the people, the people that have come from inside, most of them have been labeled traitors. Judas, you walk with this man, you step out and you do something else, you're a traitor. Marcus Brutus, oh, you betray Caesar. Most of the people that have come from inside, they don't really go far, or they end up becoming traitors. That is the story we hear again and again. Many just fail to study. I share this with you and I emphasize because for more than 65 years since we got independence, we haven't looked at ourselves and say, how do we prevent colonialism, prevent slavery and slave trade to never happen again? How do we prevent internal betrayal to never happen again so we can focus on more important things than watching each other? he would have acknowledged complicity, mentored a credible alternative, and used his influence to support change without claiming the seat. That is a bold move. A bold move. I told you about a senior citizen in America who saw Charlie Kirk and said this young man has fire in his eyes. Charlie Kirk didn't have money, nothing. And he said, I'll pay your rent, I'll pay your flight, I'll arrange stages, you travel around America preaching to young people in universities. An old man was sponsoring Charlie Kirk. Do you know how many wealthy billionaires saw Donald Trump and saw the fire in his eyes and say, we will support you financially because you create a better working environment, a prosperous environment that our businesses will thrive in? Just like some watching me here, like, okay, this is somebody that you say, okay, what can we do to empower someone like this? I'm teaching you what to do. And say, brother, we want you to focus only on this problem so that we can get to go back home someday. We can see our village again before we pass away. Southern Cameroons can finally be free. Some are not getting it. The script is right before you to succeed. They will be teaching. That would have signaled responsibility. That would have signaled reform. That one of those presidential candidates is acting in a certain way, like he understands this system, yet we don't know who is empowering this individual. But Issa Tchiroma Bakary had stepped down and said, I don't want to be part of this government anymore. What you're doing here is not okay for the people of Cameroon. Or he stepped aside for maybe 7 years, take a break, and say, I'm not part of this government anymore. Reforms himself, and then come back to lead. I'll bet on that. But again, as an outsider, it is much more better. I'll bet on an outsider every time than an insider. That would have earned trust as well. That is why he was too shaky. He came to Bamenda, said, I'm in contact with secessionists. All of those statements, I mean, you lose the trust of the Cameroon military, even though some would claim the military voted for Issa Tchiroma Bakary. You lost the trust of the elites in the Francophone zone in La République du Cameroon, because they are the final authority. Just like America has the Electoral College. I told you in 2016, Hillary Clinton won the popular vote, but Donald Trump became president because they have leaders in the community Electoral College that will say, oh, we see what this man stands for, we see what this woman stands for, we will choose this man because we know he will do well for this nation. So they were observing. They watched his every move, and they could arrive at the conclusion, even though the people voted, that we will maintain Paul Biya in power because of the way this man moved. After 3 months, he moved. After working with Paul Biya, now he's running against Paul Biya. He declared himself president. All of those moves, they say, oh, let's wait again for 1 week. And they saw many things he did, and they're like, no, Paul Biya should remain in power. And you think, because the people voted, no, he must be president. No, this kind of pure democracy doesn't work anywhere around the world, except in Africa. So I'm separating the jurisdictional question of Southern Cameroons from what is going on in La République du Cameroon. That whole system is rigged from Amadou Ahidjo. Because some talk about the havoc done during the UPC era, and they forget that it came from the north. And if you had to punish people, most of the people who took the lives of the UPC fighters came from the north. From the same area Issa Tchiroma Bakary comes from. We have short-term memory. The West, they build systems and they make sure that they identify where the attack came from. And they never forget that. Not that you become enemies with those in the north, but you know this is where the attack came from. If you don't have that kind of mindset, to have long-term memory, to build structure, forgive people, but set boundaries, you're not ready for leadership. Let's keep talking like this and we'll go nowhere. So, So instead, what international observers saw was a burden candidacy, a self-declaration of victory, and no visible transition plan. That is not confidence, that is instability. And the world will always prioritize stability because it reduces cost on their side. Because any instability, that means refugees will move into neighboring countries. Now the USA has to send aid over there, because when we are thinking of causing the trouble, we are not thinking about the effects, and we will take care of it. The global community will have to take care of that. It's not just about fighting. Like, people are agitating right now. Let's go and fight. Let me tell you something. There are some people I look at right now. If you have to bet again, even on the Amazonian story, the way the story was framed and all that, I will not bet for our people to get into a war if these individuals are leading. Because leadership is everything, and our people don't understand that. Issa Tchiroma Bakary does not have what it takes to lead a revolution. And so you just want them to repeat the script of Amazonia, where we've had poor leadership as well. Are you understanding? Step back, think well on what you're asking for. Poor leadership is a big issue. You tackle that first before you send people out. Every revolution succeeds because of leadership, not because the people were determined to go out there and riot and protest and put Issa Tchiroma Bakary in power. People often say insiders bring revolutionary change. History is more precise than that. Real system breaking change usually comes from outside. Nothing impacts an object like an outside force, not an internal force. Not people raised and rewarded by the system they claim to dismantle. Insiders learn how to survive systems. Outsiders imagine new ones. We think differently. I'm an outsider, and I love being an outsider because I'm able to see well and imagine new things. Patronage systems do not train builders. They train operators. So people that have been working in the system, they tell you they can dismantle that system. That system trains operators. Patronage systems. They don't train builders. So you step out, you'll be panicking. You don't have any guard. But an outsider knows how to survive without guards. You've been around this protocol your entire life. You think it's easy to be free without that protocol? It takes a lot of muscle. You have been trained differently. People like us are cut from a different cloth. You see the world differently because we have not been used to that protocol. Security guards everywhere, government to protect you. That is why many who succeed inside institutions struggle when they try to build independently. It is hard. That is why some even leave abroad, go back home, start a business, it fails. But they were working for the same business here in the States. Or they ran the same business here, but the environment gave them that leverage to succeed. They were part of a machine, not architects of one. Breaking a system requires moral separation, structural vision, and patience. Rushing for power usually proves the opposite. Do you understand me, my people? This political analysis is separate from Southern Cameroon's jurisdictional question. I emphasize that for a reason, because I see most of our people still caught up with the narrative of Issa Tchiroma being president. Detached from that, we have work to do in Southern Cameroon. So we never mix the two. Who governs Cameroon is one issue. Whether Cameroon ever had lawful jurisdiction over Southern Cameroons is another. Emotion belongs in mobilization. Law belongs in international forum. Make distinctions. When we confuse the two, we weaken both. That is why I call moments like this an illusion of change. Not because change is impossible, but because real change does not announce itself before it is ready. International system rewards legitimacy, discipline, and preparation, not impatience, not emotion, not familiarity with broken system. If we want different outcome, again and again, we must learn to see what global leaders see. You must plug yourself inside their lens so that you can see differently. You are an outsider. Any diaspora, you are an outsider. That's why you have 2 jobs. That's why you left your home country. America succeeds because this is a nation of outsiders, a nation of immigrants. This nation understands how to reward outsiders. And that is why creativity is abundant here. If we want different outcomes, we must learn to see what global leaders see. The game is not rigged. It's like soccer. If you train, you learn the rules, you play, you win. Those who did not train, those who did not learn the rules, they always blame the referee. That is the game of life. So what do? Since we were not born on the right side of town, we train, we learn, we stop complaining, we mobilize, we strategize, we discipline ourselves. That is the only way we succeed. If we want different outcomes, we must learn to see what global leaders see, not only what frustrated populations feel. Because in international politics, illusion delays progress, but discipline creates it. I hope this message sinks in. Share with a friend and a loved one. Click the subscribe button so that you'll be the first to be notified every time a video is uploaded. I'll see you in the next video.
Southern Cameroon's crown of freedom, you have it. A first world nation in a third world continent, you have it. Put your mind to the process, cutting edge systems, you have it. With top tier strategy, I don't see us losing, you have it. With great institutions, one single vision, you have it. Make Africa stable for trade and worship, you